As a group, we had to review the 5th grade ELA interim assessment for quarter 1. While doing this, we looked at many questions and we decided to make some charts that showed where the students may be struggling and where you could see they had the most strength. So over the next few slides, we'd like you to keep 2 questions in mind. What skills are the 5th graders strong in, and what skills do the 5th graders need assistance in? This chart just shows the skills that were used in this assessment. So we had vocabulary, parts of speech, identify details, sequence details, main ideas, analyze details and draw conclusions, character traits, author's purpose, style and language, and genre. Class A is in blue, Class B is in yellow, and the overall for the whole 5th grade was in the burnt orange color. As you can see when viewing this slide, parts of speech is very low, but we couldn't really analyze that skill because there was only one question for that skill, so we decided that the data that we'd get from it would be obsolete. There's a few other categories that were kind of low, like style and language. They only had 1 or 2 questions for that category, so we felt that we couldn't analyze that as either. So the questions that we did analyze were identify details, sequencing details, and analyzing details and drawing conclusions. This chart just shows the overall grades for the assessment that was taken. Again, Class A is in blue, Class B is in yellow, and the overall is in the burnt orange-ish color. You could see quite a few students failed overall in both classes. For Class B, they had nobody get in the 90s. Class A had nobody get in the 80s. Now when we look over here, we can see that only 11% of Class A got in the 90s. 0 got in Class B. You could see that 78% of Class B failed and 72% of Class A failed. So this was just an overview of the grades that each class got on the assessments. The next slide shows certain questions that the students seem to struggle with a great deal. So as you can see, we did question 22, and it was analyze details and draw conclusions. You can see that the correct answer was B, and you could see what the other classmates answered. And if we look over here quick, question 22, analyze details and draw conclusions, only 25% of the students answered the question correctly. So it says that the correct response was B and that most students chose A, so they could have been thinking literally about this instead of analyzing and thinking about what the details mean and then draw conclusions about the details. So we see that most of them answered A, but the correct answer was B. For question 24 was sequencing details. We see that the correct answer was D. We see that a lot of people answered A again. So when we look back, we see only 28% of the students answered the question correctly. We know that choice D was the correct response, but when we looked at the data more closely, we realized that the students needed to go back into the story and look at what events and what sequence that the events happened and what prompted the stories to happen. And finally, for question 26, the skill was to identify details. We see that choice C was the correct answer, but we also see that many of the students chose D as well. when we look back into our analysis, we see that only 31% of the students answered this question correctly. And we thought that maybe the students chose answer D because there was 2 siblings in the story, and you must look back and review and reread the details and understand that there was a baby in the family, and thus choice D could not be true.